following are true stories. May 26, 2003, Aaron Ralston was hiking. A boulder fell on his right hand. He waited 4 days. Then he amputated his own arm with a pocket knife. On New Year's Eve, a woman was bungee jumping in Zimbabwe. The cord broke. She then fell into a river and had to swim back to land in crocodile-infested waters with a broken collarbone. Claire Champlin was smashed in the face by a 5-pound watermelon being propelled by a slingshot. Matthew Brobus was hit by a javelin. David Striegel was punched in the mouth by a kangaroo. The most amazing part of these stories is when asked about the experience, they all smiled, shrugged, and said, I guess things could have been worse. So go ahead. Tell me that you're having a bad day. Tell me about the traffic. Tell me about your boss. Tell me about the job you've been trying to quit for the past 4 years. Tell me the morning is a townhouse burning to the ground. Tell me the snooze button is a fire extinguisher. Tell me the alarm clock stole the keys to your smile, drove it into 7 a.m. and the crash totaled your happiness. Tell me how blessed are we to have tragedy so small it can fit on the tips of our tongues. You see, when Evan lost his legs, he was speechless. When my cousin was assaulted, she didn't speak for 48 hours. When my uncle was murdered, we had to send out a search party to find my father's voice. Most people have no idea that tragedy and silence have the exact same address. When your day is a museum of disappointments hanging from events that were outside of your control. When you find yourself flailing in an ocean of why is this happening to me? When it feels like your guardian angel put in his 2-week notice 2 months ago and just decided not to tell you. When it feels like God is a babysitter that's always on the phone. When you get punched in the esophagus by a fistful of life, remember that every year 2 million people die of dehydration. So it doesn't matter if the glass is half full or half empty. There's water in the cup. Drink that shit and stop complaining. You see, Muscle is created by repeatedly lifting things that have been designed to weigh us down. So when your shoulders feel heavy, stand up straight, lift your chin. Hell, call it exercise. Remember that life is a gym membership with a really complicated cancellation policy. Remember that you will survive. Remember, things could be worse. Remember, we are never, ever given anything that we can't handle. When the world crumbles around you, you have to look at the wreckage and then build a new one out of all the pieces that are still here. Remember, you are still here. The human heart beats approximately 4,000 times per hour, and each pulse, each throb, each palpitation is a trophy engraved with the words, you are still alive. You are still alive. Act like it.
I was born with a silver spoon in my mouth, I know. I was born in Fallsby, West Virginia. And I went by where I was born last night, about 10:30. I was born in a cellar at home, delivered by Dr. McGraw. We had 1 bedroom for my sister, myself, and my parents. We had a half bath and a kitchen. 7.5 years we lived in that place. There was no welfare. There was no food stamps. There was no safety net. But I always had plenty to eat. Because every time I asked for seconds, my dad would say, no, you had plenty. But the reason I was born with a silver spoon, my dad had only gone to the 3rd grade. That's all the education he had. But why was I born with a silver spoon in my mouth? Because I was taught by my parents that life's a matter of making choices, wherever you are, good or bad, because of choices you make. Don't blame anybody else, but if you get an education, you're willing to work and overcome problems and difficulties, in this great country, you can amount to something. That's why I was born with a silver spoon. I was in this country and I was taught personal responsibility for choices you make. And when we talk about a commitment to excellence, that's a choice you make. What do you want to do? Having hopes and dreams and ambition. See, I think that is absolutely critical. Don't make the mistake I made. I've done a lot of dumb things, but let me tell you the one thing I regret. We went to the University of Notre Dame. We took a program on the bottom. We took it to the very top. And for 9 straight years, we went to a January 1 bowl, the sugar, the cotton, the orange, or the fiesta. Nobody's done it before. Nobody's done it since. We put it on top and we maintained it. That's the thing I regret the most. See, there's a rule in life that said you're either growing or you're dying. The tree's either growing or it's dying. So's grass, so's a marriage, so's a business, so's a person. Doesn't have a thing to do with age. My birthday candles cost more than a cake. But it has everything to do. Am I trying to get better? Am I trying to improve? We got on top and say, this is pretty good. Let's maintain it. Let's not take any risk. We finished second in the country at Notre Dame. Everybody called me an idiot. Guy finishes last in medical school. They call him doctor. That doesn't seem fair. When I left Notre Dame, I never thought I'd coach again. Where'd you go from Notre Dame? According to my mother, you go directly to heaven. You sit by the Pope. You don't coach anymore. And then I went to live in a town where the average age was deceased. And what I found out, I wasn't tired of coaching. You have to have something to hope for, something to dream. And even though you've done great things so far, what's going to happen now? I want to give you a simple plan. Life doesn't have to be complicated. I try to keep life simple. Do you realize there are only 7 colors of the rainbow? Only 7. Look what Michelangelo did with those 7 colors. There's only 7 musical notes. Look what Beethoven did with those 7 notes. There's only 10 numbers. Look what Bernie Madoff did with those 10 numbers. The point I make is it doesn't have to be complicated. See, you need 4 things in your life. If you don't have any of these 4 things in your life, you're going to have a tremendous void. See, everybody needs something to do. Number 2, everybody needs someone to love. Number 3, everybody needs someone to believe in. In my case, is Jesus Christ, our Lord and Savior. But the 4th thing you need in your life is you need something to hope for. There's never a right time to do the wrong thing. And there's never a wrong time to do the right thing. Just do what's right. I think it's right to be honest, right to be on time. See, ladies and gentlemen, enjoy life. Have fun. You're going to have problems. You're going to have difficulties. That's part of life. And don't tell people about your problems. Do you know that 90% of the people don't care? And the other 10% are glad you got them. So you're better off to keep it yourself. You're going to have problems. But have fun with what you're doing. People say, did you have fun doing the ESPN? Not really. Because if you have fun being there, people have fun being around. Doesn't mean I don't do dumb things. And sometimes I wasn't real honest. Do everything to the best of your ability with time allotted. You know, ladies and gentlemen, not all of us be All-America. Not everybody can be first team. Everybody can be the best you're capable of being. And I want to tell you, if you want to fail, you have the right to fail. That's what's great about this country. You do not have the right to cause other people to fail because you don't do everything best your ability. When you join a spouse, you bring a child in the world, you join a business, you join a team. You have obligation, responsibilities, and you owe it to other people to do the maximum you can at each and everything you do. It's not complicated. And the last rule, to show people you care. And you walk in the room, your attitude, hey, here I am, look at me. It's like, no. Your attitude, there you are, how can I help you? I wish I knew those 3 rules when I was 21. I've used them for the last 40 years. There's a statue of me at Notre Dame. I guess they need a place for the pigeons to land, but if you go look at it, just don't look at 3 words on the pedestal. Trust, commitment, love.
I will never forget that cup of coffee. Well, a couple years ago, I was traveling when my schedule worked out on Christmas Eve. I thought the airport was going to be a zoo, so I got there a couple hours early. It wasn't crowded at all, so for me, that means coffee. So I get down into my Terminal D, and I see the green sign. And when I travel these days, I always wear earbuds, so I'm rocking out to Coldplay. And I see the sign, I get in line, and there's one woman in front of me, and she's having a very animated conversation with the barista. She's kind of waving her arms, and they're both smiling and laughing. So I wasn't in a rush, but out of curiosity, I popped out my earbuds. And sure enough, they're going on about their holidays and their plans and the kids and presents, and she starts to move down the line. So it's my turn to order. And I was greeted with this very warm and sincere welcome. This woman said to me, "Hi, my name's Lily. What's your name?" I said, "I'm Ryan." She said, Ryan, what can I make for you today? I said, well, I want a grande pumpkin spice latte. She said, you want whipped cream on that, don't you? I said, yeah, I want the whipped cream. She said, I'll tell you what I'm gonna do. She said, I'm gonna make it extra hot, load it up with whipped cream, sprinkle a little nutmeg on top. That's how I like it. You're gonna love it. I said, sounds great. She said, where are you going? I said, Cleveland. She said, are you going back to Cleveland to spend the holiday with your family? I said, yes. Now, at this point, I start looking around for the camera, right? I mean, I'm trying to get a latte. So I move down the line, and the conversation continues, and she's funny. She's asking me questions about my family and our holiday traditions. She's laughing, and I'm laughing, and she hands me my drink and says to me, Ryan, have a safe trip back to Cleveland. Go create some extraordinary memories with your family. When you come back through the Minneapolis airport, I want you to stop here and tell me all about it. As I get my drink, I start walking away, and I stop and I look back at this woman, and I think to myself, you know, it's Christmas Eve. Most people would rather be anywhere else in the world than serving coffee in an airport. Not her. It was like she was meant to be there. And I couldn't help myself. I had to go back. So I did. I walked back and I said, excuse me, Lily. And you know, she jumps around. Ryan, is everything okay with the latte? I said, no. I said, the latte is perfect. I just had to come back and ask you, what is your secret to making such meaningful connections over serving coffee? Well, she corrected me. She said, Ryan, I'm not serving coffee. I said, okay, what are you doing? She had thought about this. And what she told me was, I'm pouring happiness into people's lives. I said, you're pouring what? Like, what is pouring happiness? And her definition of pouring happiness. She wants to be happy in her life. She wants to be around happy people. She cares about her customers. She wants them to come back. So she chooses, even on Christmas Eve, to smile, to have fun, to help people, to just be happy. Instead of just focusing on how to be successful, focus on how to be helpful. The other thing she understands and masters straight away is the very specific and intentional decision around how she chooses to show up, even on Christmas Eve. You know this. A lot of things happen in work and in our lives that are beyond our sphere of influence or control. She doesn't control the weather in Minneapolis. Trust me, I live there. All she gets to own is how she chooses to respond to those things. Decide how you show up. You know, it's interesting, when I met Lily, and she would have had no way of knowing this, but I was pretty heavy in the heart and had a lot on my mind. My parents, both retired school teachers, married 45 years. About 3 months before that holiday, I got a call from Mom. We got some really tough medical news about Dad. It was a terminal diagnosis, and we knew we probably weren't gonna have a lot of time. So I was sitting in that airport on Christmas Eve, not in the best place in the world. I will never forget that cup of coffee. When you decide to show up consistently as the best version of who you are, it gives you your best opportunity to meet people where they are. And you never know when someone needs you to be your best.
This was the first time I'd seen my dad cry in my life. It was May of 2010, working my summer job as a lifeguard, living at home with my parents. And this day happened to be just one of those days where it seemed like everything was going wrong. One thing after another, piling up, the stress just building. And I knew the second I walked in the door, because I was driving home, it was all just gonna evaporate. I'd come in, I'd say, hey Mom, I'd give her a hug. Dad be in the living room, in his chair. Hey Bri, how was your day? Go give him a hug. And when dinner time rolled around, we'd get up, we'd fill our plates with food, we'd go into the living room and do one of our favorite things together, which was watch a movie. The stress is evaporating and I'm in one of my happy places. And at one point, my dad went up to check on my grandfather who was taking a shower. He'd been living with us for about 10 years at that point. He was 83 now, so he needed a little more help getting around. So about a minute after Dad got up, we're sitting there, peace, silence, and serenity. And all of that shattered in an instant. Before I knew it, I grabbed the cordless phone and I was running up the stairs. I turned into the bathroom, and when I got in, I saw he had pulled his father's naked, still dripping wet body into his lap and was holding him. My grandfather's arms were draped back, his head was back, his mouth was open, and when all the emotions were rising, it was like my mind split down the middle. There were only two choices I had at that time, and I knew no matter which of those two I chose, my life was going to change forever. I knew that in that moment I had a choice between action and inaction. Have you ever been at a time in your life where it was so crystal clear that you had two choices? For you, it might not have been a life-threatening emergency. For you, it might have been that moment when you finally said, I'm done and I'm walking out. You said, I'm leaving this job. I'm not staying in this unhealthy relationship. When you finally decided to say, I love you and I'm ready for this. When you finally decided to look in the mirror for yourself and say, today is the day and we're doing it. That day, I decided to take action. So I said, Dad, we need to get him flat. Mom, here's the phone, call 911, tell them where we are, tell them what happened. We lift my grandfather's still dripping wet body naked out and lay him flat on the ground. I know I need to check his vitals, so I come down. I put my head by his mouth to listen and feel for breathing. I'm looking down the plane of his chest to see if his chest is rising and falling and rising and falling. And then I take my 2 fingers to his carotid artery to feel for a heartbeat. And as I'm doing my vital check, I'm down there. There's no breath. There's no movement in his chest. But there was the slightest little heartbeat still pumping. So I got down and started giving rescue breaths. I'm down there, my body is shaking. It feels like I can't keep going, but I know this is all I can do until someone else, an EMT, a doctor gets here. I have to keep going, but my arms are shaking, my legs are shaking, and I'm gonna keep doing it the best I can until I collapse. And then finally, after what felt like 30 or 40 minutes, I was tapped on the shoulder and the EMT is there. I tried to save a man's life that day. But as the head EMT came downstairs and explained that he had had a massive heart attack, he had likely died instantaneously, and that the heartbeats that I'd felt were nothing more than an echo or an aftershock. It felt like I failed. I hadn't saved anybody. Until later that night, when my dad looked at me and he said, Brian, if you hadn't been there, I wouldn't have known what to do. And for the rest of my life, I would have doubted that if I'd only known what to do, that my dad would still be alive today. Because you were here and you acted and you didn't hesitate, I know it was his time, and I can let him go in peace. Sometimes you'll save exactly who you intend to. Sometimes someone you didn't even see or didn't expect will benefit from your efforts. And sometimes the person you save will be yourself. And I learned one of the most important lessons I've ever learned. You never know whose life you might save by choosing to act.
I was a very, very, very weird child. And I had a port wine stained birthmark on my face that I got lasered off when I was very young, and one day they forgot to put the anaesthetic on, and then ever since then I had a stutter, and I also had very, very big blue NHS glasses. And the thing that I found most difficult about it was knowing what to say but not really being able to express it in the right way. So I did different speech therapies and stuff, which wasn't very successful at a young age, and got very, very into rap music. My dad bought me the Marshall Mathers LP when I was 9 years old, not knowing what was on it, and let me listen to it, and I learned every word of it back to front. it helped me get rid of the stutter. Stuttering is not a thing you have to be worried about at all, and even if you have quirks and weirdness, you shouldn't be worried about that. Just be yourself, because there's no one in the world that can be a better you than you, and if you try to be the cool kid from class, you'll end up being very boring. And be yourself, embrace your quirks. Being weird is a wonderful thing. Don't ever treat it as an issue, and don't see it as a plight on your life, and carry on pushing forward. And I did all right. You can do all right as well, so thank you.